What's up?
Oh, I'm just compiling all the top sports scores, news, and odds so I can make the very best bets.
Me too. BetOnline.ag.
Join today and receive your 50% welcome bonus at betonline.ag.
We are back. Alex Barth and Evan Lazar coming to you from Gillette Stadium. It's been
back
a while,
on the
Evan.
Field. I know. It feels like it's been like years, but it's really not been that long.
It's been like 2 months.
Yeah.
But a lot happened in the NFL in that time. Before we get to that,
did.
I want to remind everybody that this video is brought to you by betonline.ag. Visit clnsmedia.com/win and use the promo code CLNS50 for 50% cash back on your first purchase. Evan, the NFL is going to look a lot different next year than it did in 2018 for a number of reasons, but some big rule changes are certainly going to be front and center. It was announced a couple weeks ago. Expanded instant replay. I don't know about you. I just see this slowing down games. I understand why people want it. I think it's an overreaction to what happened in the NFC Championship game.
Well, I think that the hope is, I think for fans and for even the league a little bit, is that it's going to be there for the egregious missed calls, right? We're not going to get frame-by-frame breakdowns of every inch of everybody's pinky finger like we got in the national championship a few days ago.
What I'm saying is what stops that from happening, right?
I think that there's a general understanding from the league and from the coaches that we're talking about like the NFC Championship game, that kind of scenario. We're not talking about every little bump, every little grab, every little this, that, and the other thing.
We said that about the catch rule, and then we were looking in depth about every little catch.
This is 100% a let's all come together and do the right thing here and not get ridiculous with it.
No, but I think this is exactly what this is.
But that's the understanding, is that that's what they're going to try to make out of this rule, is that it's not going to be as ticky-tack as everybody is worried about. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying that that's going to be the hope, is that people have a little bit of, control over what they're looking at and what they're throwing flags for.
I just don't know. I think that if a coach has it at his disposal, he's going to use it.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, the national championship game, college basketball a few days ago, these rules were written, years ago when there was no concept of instant replay. It was just kind of, a judgment call. That's what pass interference is. It's a judgment call. And sure, yes, the one in New Orleans was egregious, but what's the job description of a defensive back? It's to interfere with the pass, right? It's to get in the way and make sure the pass isn't caught.
I think
legally, yes, but there's always been some level of hand fighting allowed, some level of bumping allowed. And yes, well, technically, it probably was a penalty. In the course of play, it looked natural. Nobody called it. Are we going to start calling all that now? Are you going to start seeing challenge flags coming out and reviews from the booth in the last 2 minutes every time a corner, goes to put his hand on the shoulder to get positioning of the wide receiver?
Your answer is yes. I mean, the answer is yes to that question.
That sucks.
It stinks for the viewer's pleasure. It stinks for the viewer experience.
Well, it stinks for the cornerbacks, too.
But the cornerbacks, they've already this ship has kind of already sailed for them. They know it's a passing league. They know that they're going to get run up on. I think the biggest difference is for the fans, for the viewing experience is not as good. But at the same time, the problem for the league is everything is always risk management and what happens, what's the fallout of a bad call, right? What's the reaction of a bad call? And after the NFC Championship game, as great as both of those games were, everybody was talking about the missed call in New Orleans, and that was one of the top topics of conversation. And the NFL, that's bad for the league. It's bad publicity for the league, and that's number one above anything else in all walks of life, is we need the publicity of the league to be positive.
I don't think it's better publicity either for the league that every time there's a bad call made, it's instantly replayed in slow motion 500 times on the broadcast. They really should have just, make the officials full time. How about you work on getting better officials?
We can argue about this.
We could. We go back and forth, but, the other big story, non-Patriot story from the NFL of the last couple weeks, 2 landmark receivers, both changing teams, both one coming to the AFC, the other staying in the AFC.
Yep.
That is, of course, Odell Beckham and Antonio Brown. Let's go Beckham first, just quickly on him. You now got Beckham, you got Mayfield, you got Landry.
It's a good team.
It is a good team.
We've seen some teams like that on paper.
Is it a great team, though? Because I flash back.
They haven't won anything yet.
Right. I flash back to the 2011 Eagles.
Yeah,
remember that
the
super
team,
the dream team, right, with Nnamdi Asomugha.
Right.
I think it's going to be interesting to see them play the Patriots. But look, they could win 9 games. 9 games could very well win that division. I think that's about their ceiling right now.
I think they could win the division, but I think the biggest thing is we know what all of the players are, who they are as players. Who's Freddie Kitchens as a coach, right? We don't know anything about Freddie Kitchens. This is like handing over like a Maserati to a kid without a license, right? Like you don't know what that kid is going to do.
I don't know if I said that to you or whatever, but that was my analogy as soon as it happened.
It's just like I just can't believe that they're going to hand over an offense as loaded and a roster as loaded as this to a guy as inexperienced as Freddie Kitchens is, and all of us are just kind of penciling, not all of us, but a lot of people are penciling them in as a playoff team just because of the roster talent when we don't even know if the coach is up for it yet. So I think that's the biggest thing with them.
And Antonio Brown, I don't know what's up with this guy. He demands the trade out of Pittsburgh. Now he's talking crap about Juju Smith-Schuster.
And everybody.
And not like winning either. Like he's trying to talk smack. He's actually making Juju look very good.
Yeah.
Forget the Steelers aspect of it, because the Steelers had to make this move, and if you think they could have gotten more, whatever.
That's the interesting thing about the Giants, well, not to go back to Odell, but why did the Giants trade Odell?
Yes, and that's a great point.
Like, why were they sold
because they
on
wanted
having
to give
to trade
Eli Manning
Odell?
another extension, apparently?
And his contract was very reasonable.
Very.
For a bona fide stud receiver like him. I understand that everyone thinks that he has, some off-field concerns and his makeup and his general character isn't exactly great. But yeah, side note, the Giants didn't need to trade Odell, and they did just because they felt like it. It felt like, to me.
Right. Back to Antonio Brown, the Steelers didn't need to trade him. The Raiders didn't need to trade for him.
Yeah.
He's already kind of, some red flags. Are the Raiders going to regret this?
I think that Antonio Brown's going to play well. I think he's going to be a fantasy darling like he's been. I think he's going to make a Pro Bowl in Oakland or maybe 2. I think that on the field, they're going to be able to justify it. They're not going to win any games. It's not going to translate to any wins, at least not anytime soon. So I think that's the biggest thing is that, it might look nice at times. Antonio Brown's going to have another 1,000-yard season next year. I believe that. But it's not going to translate. They're going to win 5 or 6 games, and you're going to look at a guy that's, good stats, bad team, which is often talked about in basketball. But I think this is going to be the Antonio Brown version of it.
All right, we will see. Did we miss any big non-Patriot storylines from the offseason? Let us now know in the comments down below or on Twitter at PatriotsCLNS. This edition of the Foxboro Report has been brought to you by betonline.ag. Visit clnsmedia.com/win today and use the promo code CLNS50. For Evan Lazar, I'm Alex Barth from Gillette Stadium. Thanks for watching.